Really a pleasure to be here. Thank you, Fiona, for having me here in this fireside chat on celebrating your book launch on your book How to Thrive as a Misfit. I'm really excited that. Hello. Yeah, I'm really excited about it, and both of us meet each other in Penang. That's where we met. That we share similar experience, dass wir Deutsch sprechen und wir sind Mutter. Yeah, that translate if some of you don't speak German. Yes, we speak German, and we get to know each other from a mom's community. And that's where we are today. And two years ago in 2022, we had a successful book launch in Hong Kong. And right now, finally in Penang, Malaysia. I'm really excited about it. How about you?
I'm absolutely excited because this is the country of my birth, right? And it's just so amazing to be here, launch my book, launch my story, and share my personal story with everyone, especially also because I dedicated this book to my son. And when I launched the book in Hong Kong, he was still in my tummy. And today he's here physically, so it's just really amazing to share this with new friends and of course with my parents, with my family, with my son.
Yeah, that's really lovely. How would you describe yourself in 3 words, Fiona?
So I think I'm a banana, yellow on the outside, white on the inside. So I was born in Malaysia, but I grew up in Germany. And then the past 14 years I just spent in Asia. And moving here, I felt that I'm much more connected to my German side, in fact. So, number one, banana. Second one, I would say a misfit. I sometimes feel like I stick out like a sore thumb. But that can also be for the better, for something that I wrote in my book about how can we transform our challenges and turn them into turn them into our advantages. And then the third one is energetic. So yeah,
I really like that, and especially the energetic side. Professionally, Fiona is an inspiring lady to me. She's the champion of diversity, equity, and inclusion. She's a pioneer certified leadership executive coach, an author, and 2 times TEDx speaker. And she had 14 years of corporate experience in Royal Dutch Shell. She was the global leader leading the financial digital transformation, and was one of the youngest appointed global head of operations. And today Fiona is a passionate executive coach, and she's also a keynote speaker focusing on multi-generational, cultural, and inclusion. And she's also supporting MNCs, NGOs, and also some business school. Really proud of you. And we are eager to hear more. How and what inspired you to write this book?
Right. So this book is really about a little bit about my personal story, how I grew up in Germany as a third culture individual. And the reason why I called it How to Thrive as a Misfit is because I believe that at one point in our lives, we sometimes feel like we don't really have that sense of belonging. And I'm not talking about moving to a new country. It can be just within a company where when you move from one team to another, you somehow need to try to understand the dynamics. So for me, I felt that it's really important to understand all these diversity aspects that you have, and not only see them as an adversity, but rather how can we transform them into making it an advantage. So why did I write this book? When I was in my early 20s, I always felt I wanted to write a book. You know, that was always on the back of my mind, but I didn't know what. And I'm not like a Michelle Obama, you know, I'm not Gandhi, I'm nothing like super special. And I thought, who wants to even read what I'm writing? But when I actually had a chance to be a TEDx speaker in Hong Kong, the topic was around how can you make it powerful being a diversity token in the workplace. And that just kind of inspired me to also understand, because the reason why I felt like a misfit is is actually, it all boils down to my family moving to Germany, right? So I needed to find the root cause. So the root cause is standing over there, my father. So my father had this dream of making it really big out there in Germany. He moved us in the 80s to Germany, and it was really for me then to understand what was his or my parents' kind of vision of moving us. And during COVID times, of course, we have so much time at hand. So I started writing the book and incorporating also my parents' stories. But when I worked with an editor, he said there's just too many topics. So we just narrowed it down to my story. But it all kind of like also connected to understanding my parents' story a little bit better, and to understand why they moved us all the way there, and how I felt that I was a misfit, but nevertheless, how can I turn it around as an advantage?
Very lovely. I actually was privileged to read Fiona's book last year, and I felt that resonates to me a lot, especially on when you share about your personal stories, your vulnerabilities that echo my own journey and challenge. Because I was actually born and raised in Ipoh, and I went abroad when I was 17 years old. I was abroad for almost a decade. I first went to Germany, and later I spent about 7-8 years in China. Meanwhile, back to Europe, to Germany and Switzerland again. And in between, I do face a lot of challenges such as language. Initially, I was living in a small city in Germany, Flensburg, and not much people speak English, so it actually helps me to learn German even faster. And also a funny incident that I was walking on the street on a day, and some teenagers came to me and they sang Oppa Gangnam Style song to me and asked if I'm a Japanese. So yeah, that's
Like two mistakes already, right? It's not even Japanese.
And also I'm from a very traditional Chinese family where my dad's particular reminds us of our Chinese roots. So when I was in China, in Beijing and Shenzhen, it was vastly different culture that actually different from what I have anticipated too. So yeah, that's so many, and I thought that was it. But when I decided to come back to my home country, to Ipoh, after 10 years, a decade, and I got a reverse cultural shock, and which was at the point that what you say, I felt like a misfit. Like I came back not only back in my hometown, staying with my family, also working with them. Yeah. And yeah, in your book you wrote about misfit especially, and the title. How did you specifically pick this topic?
I think it was always on my mind that I'm a misfit, and I mentioned to you that even in corporate, I was labeled as the diversity token. It was actually quite painful to hear that, because obviously when you're being employed or hired, you want to be hired for the right reasons. You want to be hired because you did a good job or because you have all these competencies. And I was actually being labeled a diversity token because I was an ethnic minority in Germany. I was female, and then I was young. So I feel that, especially right now, and I believe a lot of us here, especially our children, we're all third culture individuals, and I feel that this whole cultural identity gap between where they're originally from or where the parents are from, and versus where they're living right now, is something that they're experiencing every single day, and especially as a teenager, it's even much more challenging to have to deal with that, to find your identity. So that's also one of the motivations why I wanted to write this book, because I don't want them to feel alone. We've all somehow felt that way, and also to give them some tools in order to overcome those challenges and hurdles?
Yes, I can really resonate that. And in your book, I remember there's one quote that is quite powerful to me that you stated, cultural diversity is a challenge, but when you handle it properly, it becomes a blessing. And you also say that being inclusive shall be part of our DNA. That's so powerful. And on that part, the diversity token, like how would you advise or some of us how to navigate it to take the adversities to advantages?
Right, so I always talk about it, right? All these adversities that we face in life, no matter whether or not you feel like a diversity token, but we all face challenges in life. So how can we look at it and see them actually as something that we can learn from and turn them into an advantage? So for me, for example, when I left Shell after 14 years, I was taking a leap into entrepreneurship, trying to establish my own company as a executive coach, as a corporate trainer. And I remember one time vividly after a talk, I had a HR director come up to me from a very big bank, and he asked me, hey, did you just graduate from university and decide to become an executive coach? So appearance-wise, I didn't look like the traditional executive coach. I was not, mid-age. I was not a male executive coach, and it's just something that they picture like that. So for me, yes, of course, initially I was quite offended, but it's also where my experience speaks for itself, and I turn it around into an advantage in such a way that I'm not going to just be coaching top executives, but I want to understand where are my talents, where are my strengths, where can I add the most value to, and that's the reason why I am now working with emerging talents, young leaders. And so turning that, using that label as kind of a unique selling proposition rather than feeling offended by it, I feel like this is something that we can all learn from.
That's so beautiful. So it's a switch of mind perspective. And with that, how would you advise as an executive coach? What advice do you have for leaders, like aiming to have foster more inclusive environment?
I think it's really about not just professing the message, because I think these days, especially in companies and corporates, they always say that people come first. But it's really about reinforcing the message by their actions and really living it every single day. So, for example, when we had the pandemic, everyone is working from home, but then all of a sudden they're asking everyone to come back again. So there's somewhat like there's no new norm. They're just falling back to status quo. So I think it's really about understanding that everyone is an individual, everyone is a unique individual, and this saying about you have to treat everyone the same way you want to be treated, it just doesn't work because we are all unique. It's really about adapting to that individual and really embracing everyone's talents, everyone's unique strengths, and I think that's really the key. Diversity is there already. It's about how can we make people feel included, how can we create that sense of belonging so people feel that they can speak up without the fear of negative consequences.
Right. Would you like to share? Would you like to share more about like embracing maybe some strategies that we could adopt or apply maybe in daily lives? Sometimes it's not like when I want to use it, but it's like from our habits, right?
Yeah, it's really a habit, and I think it's really about acknowledging the biases that you may have. So the first step is always self-discovery, understanding what kind of unconscious bias you may have. And I think very simply is to mix or hang out with people who are very different from you, who are not similar to you, went to the same school, have a similar background. I think this is where we all should be a little bit more curious about each other, asking more questions, getting to know the other culture better or the other person better. And that's like a simple tool, just being curious, asking more questions, and trying to mingle with people who are not necessarily from your regular circle.
So it's like being curious, asking more questions and mingle with people from different, well, more different than you. Yes, that's very practical. So everybody remembers it, yeah? So, and we come to final questions. I believe we all seek guidance and inspiration in our life. Could you share a piece of advice or like a beacon of inspiration that you have received from someone that
Yeah, so a quote by Benjamin Disraeli, I believe that's how we pronounce it. He used to be the former UK Prime Minister. So for those of you who are from the UK, maybe you remember Benjamin Disraeli, but that was like in 1800. I don't know where. Sorry. So I have to actually Google it in terms of like what he did, but the quote that he had is so powerful, and I don't even remember where I read it before. But it says that action does not always bring happiness, but there is no happiness without action. And you know, like being an executive coach, running trainings, and you know, we absorb so much information every single day. We're reading books, we're listening or watching TED Talks. But ultimately, it boils down to you as an individual to take actions, and that's only where you can see change. So for me, taking actions is definitely like that stood out to me, and it still stays with me after such a long time reading this quote.
That's really powerful, and that's very true. So that's the last word from Fyiona. Taking action, it's very important. Do it today. What do you want to do? Take action. Yeah. So that's all for our conversation. And does anyone has any questions to ask? There's a short Q&A questions open to the floor. Yes.
Hello. Well, I'd like to ask, what can we do as parents to help our children to cope with maybe this feeling that probably they will have in the future because they grew up in a different country, to cope with this feeling of they don't know where do they belong to, or how can they do it?
Yeah, so I think speaking from personal experience, because I'm not a child psychologist or parent counselor, I think it's really about listening to them, how they're feeling, and really asking them questions. And I feel like these little things is not just with regards to cultural identity. In general, I think it's really about trying to spend some time being present and observing them in terms of how they're feeling, and just asking them these questions. Because I've always been asked, where are you from? Where's your home country? And this question was really difficult for me to answer. Because if I say it's Malaysia, but I've never lived in Malaysia, and I never felt like that connection. So I think it's really opening up that conversation, asking your children, asking especially teenagers. I feel like especially in teenage years, it's already difficult for a teenager to find their identity, let alone cultural identity. So again, I think it's kind of like a blanket statement, but it's really about listening to them, asking more questions, and helping them to maybe you can empathize. Obviously, you've also spent a lot of years abroad. And you can share maybe your vulnerabilities, how you have dealt with some of the challenges where you felt like you don't really fit in, the language barriers there. So share your own vulnerabilities with them so that they don't feel that they're alone.
So it's being open and be authentic to our children. Yeah, don't be afraid to share our vulnerabilities. Any other questions?
What is the third culture individual?
Okay, so third culture individual, thank you for the question. It's basically someone who is growing up in a country or born in a country where the parents are from a different culture. So, for example, my son, he is, again, very challenging. Nationality-wise, he is a German, but he was born in Malaysia. But his parents, so I'm born in Malaysia, but I grew up in Germany. His dad is actually ethnicity-wise from Hong Kong, but he was born in Germany. So it's kind of like a bundled up kind of individual whereby the parents are actually not from the same culture as the current country they're living in. Does that maybe also apply to you?
I was born and raised in Germany.
Okay.
And you speak German too,
I
right?
speak German.
Oh, you speak German.
I speak German. My pastor doesn't really want to.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
All right. One more then.
Just curiosity. I mean, I can speak loud. Do you celebrate like you have like German celebrations, Malaysian, Hong Kong? Do you celebrate all of them?
Yes, we do. But much more actually Christmas. Like Christmas, even though we're not Christian, my parents have always celebrated Christmas like it was such a big deal. They decorated and still are decorating their place like it's a winter wonderland. So for me, it was not so much the religion, but it's more about the celebration. And also in Germany, you know, we have to go to church even though we're not Christian, especially during Christmas, and just really understand the different religion, different festivities. Right now, for example, my intern, she's from Pakistan, and she's also celebrating Ramadan. So I'm very curious. I want to know a little bit more because you know, living in Hong Kong is a very homogenous culture. It's not very diverse, not like in Malaysia. So we don't really have a lot of Muslim friends. So now I actually get to know more about different cultures and just being more curious and asking questions instead of having the biases that we have. Yeah. But yeah, celebrating everything if I can. Yeah, so how do I feel about the word home? And I do get that question a lot, like where is your home? So I always say, even though it sounds cheesy, but home is where my heart is. And where my heart is with my husband, with my baby. So wherever they are, that's where my home is.
How do you feel, Tom?
My home is here.
Oh, yes, Jane.
All the trainers.
Were there any surprises by your friends or family from what they read about the book? Was there something they didn't know from the book?
Good question. Yeah. So is there something that I revealed that my family or friends didn't know about? A lot. So I let my parents actually read it before I printed it out. And my mom was saying that she was quite surprised to hear about these stories and she wasn't aware of it. And I think this goes back to your question, Anna, you know, how can you make it easier for your child to, you know, bridge that cultural gap or cultural identity is really asking more questions. And my parents, they were super busy. They were working, you know, felt like 24/7 in a restaurant in Germany. A lot of us in Germany, our parents actually work in restaurants. Same with my husband as well, his family does too. So we hardly spend time with them, and you know, we try to figure things out by ourselves, which is challenging, right? But yeah, there were certain things that people were quite surprised about, friends and family especially. But I think it's and it took a big step for me to actually reveal so much. But in a way, revealing so much in order to help others. That was actually my mission.
Thank you, Fyiona, for having the courage to share your vulnerabilities in your book, and not just sharing it, but with the practical tools. Those of you who have purchased the book, please read it. I still remember there was a reminder at the front that you should put your phone aside, put everything that would distract you, and really digest it and take notes and highlight.
Because the book is actually written in 3 key chapters. So the first chapter is about my life as a third culture kid. How did I manage it in Germany? But the second chapter is for those of you who are in corporate life, especially for those who are aspiring to management positions. So I also like share some management tools, some leadership mindset shift. And then the third one, if you are in that space of wanting to become an entrepreneur. So after 14 years, I took the lead. So what is it? What can you do in order to have that courage to take that lead? So it's written in kind of like 3 chapters. And as Nora said, you know, I would love you to actually read it with lots of post-its, take notes with highlighters, and again, remember Benjamin's quote. It's really actions may not always bring happiness, but there's no happiness without action. So it's all about taking action.
Thank you so much for all of you being here today.
Yeah, I really appreciate everyone being here. Thank you so much for your time. And yeah, so you can purchase the book. You can scan the QR code over there, and we'll do a book signing if you like.
And a big shout out to BookXcess also for this beautiful space for hosting us today.
And we will also take a group photo. So, shall we take a group photo?
Yeah,
first?
we should.
Who wins the woods?
Direkt davor.